Officer Michael Slager shooting Walter Scott is shocking enough, but it is this moment, says Los Angeles defense attorney Darren Kavinoky, that is something he's never seen.
April 4th, 2015. 8 bullets ripped through Walter Scott's back as he ran. Officer Slager didn't flinch, just strolled over and dropped his taser beside Scott, setting the stage for a lie that would later haunt them behind prison walls. Here's what happens to dirty cops in prison.
Any of you cops out there think that I am involved in any crime in your jurisdiction, come to me. I will take a polygraph. I will take the test. You can take my fingerprints, whatever you want to do. I'll cooperate.
July 21st, 1972, Hutchinson Island, Florida. What should have been just another summer day turned into straight-up horror. 2 teenage hitchhikers, 18-year-old Nancy Ellen Trotter and 17-year-old Paula Sue Wells, thought they were safe when they got picked up by a uniformed Martin County deputy named Gerard John Schaefer. Badge on his chest, authority in his voice, he looked like the safest ride they could take. But instead of helping them, Schaefer drove them deep into the woods. He tied ropes around their necks, balanced them on tree roots over swamp water, and told them this was just to teach them a lesson about hitchhiking. He left them there, believing gravity and time would finish the job. But those girls fought like hell. Somehow, they broke free of the cuffs and gags, scrambled to the highway, and flagged down help. When police showed up, both pointed the finger right at Schaefer. He was fired on the spot, arrested, and later pled guilty to aggravated assault. His sentence? Just 1 year in jail, with parole possible in 6 months, starting January 15, 1973. Schaefer brushed it off as a stupid mistake, but nobody was buying that. And here's where it gets darker. Months earlier, 2 other girls had vanished. Susan Place, 17, and Georgia Jessup, 16, had left home in Fort Lauderdale on September the 27th, 1972, with a man Susan's mother had introduced them to. They never came back. For months, no answers. But on April 1st, 1973, a father and son collecting cans stumbled on a shallow grave in what's now Oak Hammock Park in Port St. Lucie. The grave was barely 2 feet deep, about 200 feet off a dirt road. Inside, 2 bodies. The trees nearby had deep scrape marks. The same twisted setup Trotter and Wells had barely escaped. On April 5th, examiners confirmed it was Susan and Georgia. Detectives zeroed in on Schaefer. A search of his mother's house uncovered over 300 pages of violent stories and disturbing sketches. At his own place, they found knives, guns, and Georgia's suede purse. A purse he'd casually given his wife like it was just some regular gift. They even recovered human teeth, later tied to another missing girl. The rope fibers, the tree roots, the identical method. It all lined up. And Susan's own mother ID'd Schaefer, even recalling his license plate. By then, police knew they had their man. February 27, 2001. The gavel dropped like a coffin lid. Joseph Midzianowski, once feared on the streets, respected in the ranks, got sentenced to life, not for slipping up on the badge, but for turning it into a weapon of pure corruption. And when those prison gates closed on him, the streets weren't the only ones waiting to get even. See, Midzianowski wasn't your run-of-the-mill crooked cop. He was a full-blown double agent. On paper, he was one of Chicago's most respected narcotics officers, but behind the curtain, he was running his own drug empire, pushing cocaine, shaking down rival dealers, using his badge like a license to do whatever he wanted. He didn't just bend the rules. He rewrote them for himself. And for years, nobody touched him. He knew the streets and the system inside out, and he played both sides like a master. But in 1998, the feds finally caught up. What followed was a massive takedown that showed just how deep the rot really went. By 2001, he was convicted on more than a dozen charges: racketeering, drug trafficking, extortion, conspiracy, the whole list. His conviction even forced the breakup of Chicago PD's anti-gang crimes unit. The sentence, life in federal prison, no parole, no deals, game over. And that's when reality hit him hard. Once that badge was stripped away, Midzianowski wasn't a cop anymore. He was a narco cop who had burned dealers, crossed gangs, and betrayed his own. That made him public enemy #1 on both sides of the wall. They locked him in protective custody right away. No yard time, no blending in, none of the usual prison life. Because if he had ever stepped foot in general population, he wouldn't have lasted a day. Word was out. Some of the same people he'd locked up, robbed, or double-crossed were waiting inside. And they weren't planning on talking things out. So he got shuffled from prison to prison, always hiding, always paranoid. No power, no respect, just silence. Inmates didn't trust him. Guards didn't want to deal with him. This man once controlled the streets of Chicago. And now he couldn't even control his own lunch schedule. In 2020, he tried to get a sentence reduction under the First Step Act. Denied. In the end, Mierdzianowski didn't die from a prison shank or a shower ambush. But prison still crushed him in the slowest, most soul-draining way possible. He became a ghost in the system, forgotten, alone, stripped of every ounce of power he once abused. And for a man like him, that might just be the harshest sentence of them all. June 18, 2014, Janie Laan sat trembling in an interrogation room telling the story of how Officer Daniel Holtzclaw forced her into the back of his patrol car. He made her choose jail or him. And the worst part, she wasn't the only one. Holtzclaw had been running this sick pattern for a while, and her voice was just the beginning. Born December 10, 1986, in Guam, Holtzclaw looked like the picture-perfect cop. Former college football player, tall, clean-cut, the type folks thought you'd want on your side. But behind that badge, he was a predator. He targeted vulnerable black women during traffic stops and routine checks. Women with records, women society already ignored. He knew exactly who to exploit and exactly how to keep them quiet. But secrets don't stay hidden forever. In 2014, one brave woman came forward, then another, and another. Soon, over a dozen women accused him of everything, from groping to full-on sexual assault. The trial was explosive. Story after story painted the same picture. Holtzclaw using his authority to trap, intimidate, and violate women who thought they had no voice. The verdict, guilty on 18 counts. The sentence, 263 years. They weren't playing around. Now here's where it turns. Being a cop in prison is already a death sentence waiting to happen. But being a cop convicted of assaulting women, that makes you straight up prey. Just like the others, he was thrown in protective custody. No general population. Survival only. Inmates taunted him constantly, shouting through vents, banging on walls, calling him every name you can imagine. Some even tried to push close to his cell just to get a shot at him. No cafeteria meals, no yard time, no walking down the halls alone. Every move had to be guarded, or it could have been his last. Holtzclaw was locked down 23 hours a day, boxed in by the same justice system he once represented. And here's the kicker, this man still claims he's innocent. No remorse, no apology. Just appeals and interviews where he tries to play the victim. But the truth? Holtzclaw built this prison for himself brick by brick, assault by assault. Now he's trapped in it, stripped of his badge, reduced to just another number. He wore that uniform and preyed on the powerless. Now, nobody fears him anymore.
Drew Peterson, like you've not seen him before. The former Bolingbrook cop is behind bars with little hope of ever regaining his freedom.
But he is still unrepentant for the crime he's been convicted of, murdering his third wife, Kathleen Savio, and denies any involvement in the disappearance of his fourth wife, Stacy.
October 28, 2007. The bed was cold. The car was still sitting in the driveway. But 23-year-old Stacy Peterson was gone. Her family was in full panic mode, while her husband, Drew Peterson, a seasoned cop, stood there cracking jokes with reporters, like nothing happened. Behind that fake smile was a secret darker than anyone imagined. Drew Peterson, born January 5, 1954 in Bolingbrook, Illinois, suburb of Chicago. Former police sergeant who walked like the rules didn't apply. And in his mind, they didn't. 4 marriages, 4 trails of suspicion. This man thought he was untouchable. But when his fourth wife, Stacy, vanished in 2007, that was the beginning of his downfall. Stacy disappeared without a trace. And Drew? He just grinned into the cameras, like he knew where she was, and he wasn't ever going to tell. Authorities could have pinned Stacy's case on him right away, but instead they went back and reopened the file on his third wife, Kathleen Savio. Back in 2004, Kathleen was found dead in her bathtub. At first, they called it an accident, but after Stacy's disappearance, they reclassified it as homicide. By 2012, Drew Peterson was convicted of killing Kathleen Savio and handed 38 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections. But Drew couldn't keep quiet. Even behind bars, he was a problem. Manipulative, arrogant, always scheming. And in 2016, he made his biggest mistake yet, trying to hire a hitman to take out the very prosecutor who put him away. That earned him another 40 years stacked on top. Because of that, Illinois DOC had to move him, first into tighter lockdown. Then eventually, they shipped him out of state altogether for his own safety. For a while, he ended up at USP Terre Haute, a federal high-security prison in Indiana, the same place they keep some of the country's most dangerous criminals. And in there, Drew wasn't a cocky ex-cop anymore. He was just another inmate, with a big target on his back. Other prisoners remembered his face from the news. Guards remembered his murder-for-hire plot. So, like the others, he was stashed away in protective custody, isolated, watched 24/7, the same kind of surveillance he used to dish out on the streets. Once upon a time, Drew Peterson played the media like a fiddle, flashing smiles in interviews, even dating women from prison, acting like he ran his own empire. But now, he's just another number in the system, shuffled from place to place with no one left to charm and nowhere left to hide.
Next, US media says the former Minneapolis police officer who was convicted of murdering George Floyd in 2020 has been stabbed in prison.
November 23, 2023. Derek Chauvin hit the cold prison floor, bleeding out fast. Another inmate has stabbed him relentlessly. No badge, no power. Just a man gasping in terror, abandoned by the same system he once served. Chauvin's name became infamous back on May 25, 2020, the day George Floyd died under his knee. Now, before that moment, Chauvin had nearly 20 years in as a Minneapolis cop. On paper, just another officer. But if you look deeper, red flags everywhere. Across his career, he racked up at least 17 misconduct complaints. Most brushed aside, some minor reprimands, but nothing ever stuck. Nothing slowed him down. Then came that 9-minute video outside Cup Foods. Chauvin pressing Floyd's neck into the pavement while Floyd begged for breath. "I can't breathe." That image burned itself into history. Floyd became more than a man. He became a symbol of something deeper and darker. In 2021, Chauvin was convicted. Second-degree murder, third-degree murder, second-degree manslaughter. The judge gave him 22.5 years. Then came the federal case, civil rights violations. Another 21 years stacked alongside the first. Prison life was never going to be easy for him. A former cop, one of the most hated ones at that. From day one, he was kept in near total isolation. 23 hours a day locked down. No yard, no cafeteria, just a concrete box and the knowledge that stepping outside it could mean death. But even isolation couldn't save him forever. November 2023. Chauvin was stabbed multiple times inside the federal prison in Tucson, Arizona. Headlines flared up all over again. Authorities said he survived. But the message was clear. In prison, a reputation like his is already a death sentence waiting to happen. And the court drama still not over. He tried appealing, claiming media coverage and public outrage made his trial unfair. The judges weren't hearing it. Appeal denied. No new trial. No sympathy. Now, Derek Chauvin sits in that cell, just another inmate with a long stretch ahead of him, and no escape hatch. March 10th, 1986, gunfire echoes through a Brooklyn street. Jimmy Heidel, a young mobster tied to Roy DeMeo, was never seen again, his body erased. But the killers weren't street thugs in hoodies. Nah, they were cops, detectives hiding in plain sight. Stephen Caracappa and Louis Eppolito, two NYPD detectives who traded their badges for blood. These weren't just dirty cops. They were mob cops, working directly with the Lucchese crime family while still wearing the NYPD uniform. Caracappa was high-ranking, one of the guys who even helped build the organized crime homicide unit. Ippolito already had mob ties in his family. His dad and uncle were wise guys. So when mob boss Anthony Gaspipe Casso needed inside help, he got it. Straight from these two. They weren't just passing info, they were pulling triggers, tracking down targets, delivering men to the mob, sometimes even carrying out the hits themselves. One guy was kidnapped, tortured, and executed. Another gunned down in his car while his wife sat screaming in the passenger seat, all while these two still cashed NYPD paychecks. It all unraveled in 2005. The feds had finally gathered enough. In 2006, both men were convicted. 8 murders, racketeering, conspiracy. The sentence, life plus 100 years. Caracappa was sent to a federal prison in North Carolina. Ippolito shipped out to Arizona. Caracappa was already battling cancer. He didn't last. He died in 2017, alone behind bars at 75. As for Ippolito, he played the innocent card, even tried writing screenplays. Wild thing, he had once played a cop in Hollywood before his arrest, but prison broke him too. His health collapsed, and by 2019, he was gone. Natural causes, Tucson prison. No memorial, no tributes. Just a cold, lonely ending. 2 men who thought they could live double lives. Cops by day, killers by night. Instead, they left one of the darkest stains in NYPD history. Proof of what happens when power is sold to the highest bidder. Forget about it.
After Stephanie graduated from UCLA, she joined the LAPD in the early 1980s.
Stephanie I. Lazarus.
She seemed to excel and do well in specialized assignments, but it was always competitive.
February 24th, 1986, Sherry Rasmussen lay beaten and shot on her living room floor. A bite mark seared into her arm, the last act of rage from someone she probably knew. Upstairs, shattered glass painting the picture of a break-in. But the real story? Man, that was buried behind a badge. Because the killer wasn't some random burglar, it was Stephanie Lazarus. LAPD through and through, respected, smart, even part of the elite art theft unit. But under that badge, she was carrying one of the darkest secrets in LAPD history. Back in '86, Sherry, a brilliant nurse, was found murdered in the condo she shared with her new husband, John. At first glance, it looked like a robbery gone bad, broken glass, signs of a struggle, but something always felt off. Sherry had been beaten savagely, then shot 3 times, yet the case went cold. Here's the twist. Stephanie Lazarus had dated John before he married Sherry, and she didn't take that breakup well. Co-workers said she was obsessed, even confrontational with Sherry. Still, nobody believed she'd go this far, but she did, and for over 20 years she got away with it, solving crimes by day while hiding her own at night. Then DNA technology caught up. In 2009, cold case detectives pulled Sherry's file. That bite mark still had DNA, and it wasn't from a burglar. It was from Stephanie Lazarus. She was finally arrested by her own colleagues, and in 2012, convicted of first-degree murder. The courtroom was stunned. Her face showed no emotion, no guilt, nothing. Now, serving 27 to life at the California Institution for Women, Stephanie went from badge to jumpsuit. She tries to lay low, but prisons don't forget. Former cop or not, people don't look kindly on a woman who killed out of jealousy. She hasn't spoken publicly since, but her cold, calculated demeanor during trial and the way she tried to manipulate investigators left a lasting impression. She wasn't just calculated, she was chilling. Some inmates avoid her, others don't even know her history. But the ones who do, they'll never forget that face from the news, the mask of control hiding a decades-old murder. Stephanie Lazarus, from decorated detective to convicted killer. No matter how many walls she hides behind now, the truth already caught her, and she's locked away for good. April 4th, 2015, the morning peace in North Charleston, South Carolina, shattered by 8 gunshots. Unarmed Walter Scott hit the grass face down, bullets tearing through his back. And then, cold as stone, Officer Michael Slager walks up, drops his taser beside the body like he's planting a lie to cover his tracks. That move, that's the one that's gonna flip his whole life upside down, especially once he hits prison. Slager used to wear a badge, thought he had power, never pictured trading it for a prison jumpsuit. But 2015 made sure of that. See, a bystander had a phone camera rolling, and what that lens caught, there was no hiding from it. It started simple. A traffic stop. 50-year-old Walter Scott pulled over for a busted brake light, but instead of routine, it spiraled. Walter ran unarmed, scared, and Slager gave chase. Next thing you know, 8 rounds fired, 5 bullets slam into Walter's back, he drops in the grass, and the whole thing on video. That footage shows it clear. Slager walking up, slipping his taser down by Walter's body like he can rewrite the story. But the world saw it. The video went viral. People were furious. Slager got slapped with a murder charge. The first state trial, hung jury, but the feds stepped in. 2017, Slager pleads guilty to violating Walter Scott's civil rights. That's the legal way of saying you used deadly force without cause, and you stripped a man of his right to live. The sentence, 20 years in federal prison. Now here's the reality check. When a former cop, especially one tied to one of the most infamous police shootings in America, hits the feds, he's not walking in like a man, he's walking in like prey. They sent him to a medium security joint in Colorado. That spot's known for housing dirty cops and high-profile inmates, and trust me, even in there, his name carried a target. Inmates don't forget, especially not the ones who live their lives dodging badges and bars. You kill an unarmed man, you don't get respect, you get isolation. Slager's lawyers begged for protective custody, and more than once they pulled him from general population just to keep him breathing. 2018, he tried appealing the sentence, said it was too harsh. The court wasn't buying it. That 20 years stuck. And here's the brutal truth. It wasn't one mistake. It was 8 bullets, 8 choices. And no badge in the world could protect him once the truth hit the screen. From cop to convict, Slager's fall wasn't just hard. It was fast, brutal, and broadcast worldwide. Now, behind bars, he's learning the lesson firsthand. When you become the villain, the system don't ride for you.
Former officer Raphael Perez is at the center of the growing police scandal. As part of a plea bargain on cocaine charges, Perez admitted he and other officers shot unarmed gang members, planted evidence, and lied under oath to get convictions.
1998, LAPD's Rampart Station. The evidence locker wasn't just stacked with dope, it was a playground for dirty cop Raphael Perez. This fool thought he could walk off with 8 pounds of cocaine and nobody would notice. But that move didn't just expose him. It cracked open one of the biggest scandals in U.S. police history. You ever hear about a cop so grimy he nearly dragged down an entire department? That's Perez, LAPD crash unit. Supposed to be the anti-gang elite. But truth is, they were running it like their own gang. Perez was out here planting evidence, beating folks, skimming drugs, flipping coke from the evidence room like it was his personal stash. This wasn't law enforcement. This was a criminal enterprise hiding behind a badge. And it all blew up when he got caught with those 8 pounds of cocaine from the locker. That's not a slip-up. That's a career suicide note. Facing serious time, Perez folded quick. He cut a deal and started singing. Over 70 officers got named. Careers ended. Cases overturned. People who'd been wrongfully locked up had to be set free. The system got exposed for the rotten mess it was. But here's the part that sealed his fate. Being a dirty cop is one thing. Being a cop who snitches on other cops, man, that's a death sentence. He couldn't walk no prison yard. They had to shuffle him from spot to spot, hide him in isolation, protective custody, just to keep him breathing. Everybody wanted a piece of him. Gangs he crossed, inmates who smelled weakness, even cops who felt betrayed. It got so bad, Perez had to slide into federal witness protection. New name, new life, trying to vanish. But ghosts don't disappear that easy. His name still echoes in LA every time corruption comes up. Yeah, he avoided a long bid by flipping, but he sentenced himself to a different kind of prison, one where he's always looking over his shoulder. And that's the truth about cops like Perez. They might dodge the hammer in court, but they'll never outrun the streets, the system, or their own guilty conscience.
Also breaking at this hour, former NOPD officer Antoinette Frank, who is scheduled to be executed, was denied clemency today.
March 4th, 1995. Blood smeared across the restaurant floor. In the shadows, Kong Vu crouched, paralyzed with fear. He had just watched his sister collapse. And right there beside her, Officer Ronald Williams, a man they trusted, lay dying by the cash register. Then came the sound, slow footsteps cutting through the silence. Antoinette Frank, still rocking her police uniform, raised her gun again. That badge on her chest didn't mean protection no more. It meant betrayal. It meant execution. Frank wasn't just some rookie on the beat. She was supposed to be one of New Orleans' protectors. But behind that uniform, darkness. And what she did that night in '95 would stain her name forever as one of the coldest betrayals in American policing. That night, she walked into the Kim An Vietnamese restaurant, a place she had worked security before. But this time, she wasn't there to guard nothing. She showed up strapped with her 18-year-old boyfriend, Rogers Lacaze, a known dealer ready to unleash chaos. First shot, Officer Ronald Williams, another off-duty cop working security, gunned down instantly. Then the Vu family was forced toward the safe, and when that wasn't enough, she and Lacaze executed two of their children, Ha and Quang Vu, straight cold-blooded. And get this, she had the nerve to return later, playing the part, acting shocked, pretending to investigate the very murder she just committed. But she wasn't fooling nobody. One member of the Vu family survived, and they pointed the finger right at her. That uniform, that badge, it all came crashing down the moment she was identified. Her trial? Quick, brutal, unforgettable. The jury heard how she weaponized her badge to carry out a triple homicide. The verdict, death sentence. Antoinette Frank became one of the rare women and even rarer cops sitting on Louisiana's death row. Since then, her life inside has been far from quiet. Locked up at the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women, she stirred drama even behind bars. Reports of fights, bizarre claims about her innocence, and a mountain of appeals, all of them denied. Her lawyers tried every angle, saying she was manipulated by her young boyfriend, saying she was broken by trauma. But the jury, the courts, they weren't buying none of that. So now she waits. No set execution date, just endless time, endless silence. Her name still lingers like a shadow, a reminder of what happens when someone sworn to protect lets the darkness take full control. Antoinette Frank didn't just cross the line, she shattered it. And that's why she sits among the most infamous dirty cops this country has ever seen.